Now, the Tánaiste to Simon Coveney is to back abortion up to 12 weeks into a pregnancy in a dramatic change of heart ahead of the 8th Amendment referendum. The Foreign Affairs Minister's shift in position could have a major impact on the course of the campaign, as he has long opposed any form of abortion regime in Ireland. Joining us for that story and others making news this morning are the Director of the Irish Academy for Public Relations, Ellen Gunning, and Group Political Correspondent for Communicorp, Sean Defoe. Good morning to you both. Ellen, this is a fairly major shift, isn't it, on Simon Coveney's behalf?
It's a huge shift, and I don't think it's the last shift we'll see in a public person changing their opinion. I think this is an issue which is really going to tax people. He seems to have spent a lot of time talking to people, getting some medical advice, talking to Simon Harris, and trying to see what is the fairest way to proceed. What he has said is that he will agree to an abortion within 12 weeks if the abortion is by abortion pill. If the request, it seems the government is going along the lines of the request for abortion will be held for 48 to 72 hours to allow somebody to change their mind or to consider it, and that after that, under medical supervision, an abortion pill he would agree with. He says very much that he's like the father of 3 girls and he's agonised about this. I think he genuinely has. I think he has come to the conclusion, it seems, that people are going to take tablets anyway. There is no regulation. Should they be getting them over the internet? Is this a modern way to deal with this issue? And he seems to have come down on the side of no, it isn't, and that the best bet is to allow medical supervision and allow people to take a tablet if that's their desire.
Sean, he seems to have undergone the same sort of journey that a lot of people who were in the Citizens' Assembly and who were on the Oireachtas Committee did. People who would have been opposed to any form, or people who were opposed to repealing the 8th, who were, no, right from the very beginning, and quite a few of those changed. He seems to have done exactly the same thing.
Yeah, we saw quite a lot in the committee as well, the Oireachtas Committee on it, where the likes of Billy Kelleher came in with a pro-life view and came out saying that, well, look, this is the reality, particularly with regard to the abortion pill. There was a number of interesting pieces, interesting facts, I suppose, in Simon Coveney's piece in the Irish Independent this morning. One, he said that he was satisfied that the 12 weeks aspect won't allow for the screening for disabilities with children, which has been obviously a concern. And another phrase that he used, saying that he will support it up to 12 weeks gestation, which is essentially 10 weeks pregnancy. And I think that's an interesting statement because it puts the idea out there of a 10-week limit as opposed to a 12-week limit, which is where quite a lot of people think this may end up if the 8th Amendment is repealed and it goes into legislation, that those with who have concerns about 12 weeks may try to fight it back to 10.
Which would mean that absolutely no decision made on aborting a fetus at 10 weeks could be based on whether there was a disability there or not, because it's medically impossible to detect certainly at that stage.
Yeah, certainly almost medically impossible is what the experts say on it, even at 12 weeks, and if it went back to 10 weeks, even more so. What the pro-life side have argued is that we have seen huge advancements in technology when it comes to scanning, and that's probably going to continue, and their worry is that in the future, at some point, there will be technology out there that will allow you to examine for disability prior to 12 or 10 weeks, and that's when that may come in. But certainly based on the technology we have now and the law that is proposed, it's one in an astronomical number that you could scan for a disability.
In terms of to go back to your day job, Ellen, in terms of the PR involved in this campaign, Simon Coveney would be seen to be on the more conservative side of the argument. He could very easily have become a sort of a lightning rod for people on all sides of the pro-life debate. With him now switching sides or off the field in that regard, does it make repeal of the 8th, I won't say a foregone conclusion, but is it going to make it look easy? Will it pass easier?
I don't think so. I don't think this is going to be an easy referendum at all. I think what Simon Coveney reflects is what people are going through in their minds every day. They're trying to come up with the best possible solution, the fairest possible solution. They don't want abortion on demand, and they don't want to deprive women of the right to have an abortion. I think this issue isn't black and white. I'm very afraid that the government will cruise into this and the referendum won't pass because people will just be too nervous, they'll be too unsure about what they're doing. I think Simon Coveney has, yes, he started as the pro-life person, for want of a better description. I think he was always very reasoned in his view, so he was always somebody that people listened to. I think they'll continue to listen to him now as he agonises quite publicly over this referendum. I'm not at all sure that it will pass, but I'm not sure that it will pass because I'm not sure how the campaign will be fought. I don't think anybody wants a really negative campaign like we've seen in the past.
No.
But I don't know that an adult campaign will actually debate it enough to allow people to be sure they're taking the right decision.
Well, what he has done is he's crystallised what a lot of us know, which is that the system as it stands right now is completely unacceptable. Something has to be done about it. We do not want wholesale abortion on demand, but if it's going to happen, and it is happening, then it is an Irish problem, and we need to sort it, and we need to do something that puts a system in place where the best possible outcomes can be determined, and that if somebody is in that situation, they get all of the advice and all of the options before they make a decision. But ultimately, it is their decision, Sean.
Yeah, I think it is a very significant intervention when you see where he came from and how against it he was at the start. I think he does probably reflect that middle ground of people who do accept, as you say, there needs to be some sort of change, that the law isn't right here, it isn't fit for purpose, which is what he said in his piece this morning, but are still agonising over how. And I think a lot of people, when they saw that 12 weeks come out at Citizens Assembly, the committee thought too far. Now they're reconsidering.
Let's move to another story, which it's on the front page of the Times this morning. It's going to scare an awful lot of people. This childminders may face mandatory training and vetting, and there's a couple of interesting aspects of that. First and foremost, that out of 35,000 childminders nationally, there's only 120 registered voluntarily, which is quite extraordinary. A lot of people will go, look, child care is a struggle as it is expensive. You can't get the childcare you want, you can't afford the childcare you want. If there's more training and more vetting, there's more expense, which is going to make it more expensive, which is going to make it less achievable for people.
I have to put my hand up and say I don't have any children, so this is not an issue that affects me. I need to preface my remarks by saying that, but I actually believe that children are a huge responsibility. You hand your children over to somebody to mind them every day. I would like to know that those people who are minding them were qualified. I think we've seen too much of abuse of either children or elderly people or people who don't have a voice, who can't speak for themselves. So as a parent, I would prefer to pay more money if somebody was actually going to be qualified. I noticed that what they said was that grandparents will not need to be vetted in any way, which seems to make a huge amount of sense. If you manage to raise your own children, you'll probably manage to raise your grandchildren. They also said that the legislation will not take into account people who are private childminders. So if you have a nanny at home, for example. And that's a huge issue because an awful lot of people
or an au pair,
bring in, or an au pair, because they'll bring somebody in from outside who is a young child who will look after young children who have no qualifications either. I'm inclined to think that
But as the parent, you're employing them, so therefore your decision is...
And that's the basis that they're leaving it on, that you decide this person is capable to mind your children. I just think it's probably the most important decision you'll ever make in your life, who will mind your children. I think if it involves an extra few bob, make sure people are qualified.
Why is it that, and I'm not talking about the Scandinavian models, which everybody holds up as the ideal, why is it that every other European country that I know of can actually have, a satisfactory to very good childcare arrangement, but we're still scraping around at the edges?
I think, particularly with the childminding, I think it's largely because with childminding in particular, you tend to go to a friend or you tend to go to someone that, rather than a professional, I mean, you look to maybe, a friend's daughter or someone, that who can pick up the kids after school, rather than going down the childcare professional route, which is obviously more expensive. That might be something behind the reason that there's so few of them actually registered, that they're people you trust rather than the people with the qualifications. So that could be a bit of a part of it. But in terms of the actual overall childcare model, I mean, we've got a lot of huge issues in it. What Minister Defoe is trying to do here is probably laudable, in that she is trying to issue some sort of standards across the board, ensure there's training. But if that also drives the cost up, and I mean, the benefit that people will be getting is about €20 a week if they were under this. It's not a hill of beans in terms of the overall cost that people are facing. So whether or not it's worth actually bringing in on a child-minding basis, you would have to wonder.
Okay, so we'll leave it at that. Thank you both very much indeed. Plenty more to come in the programme. We'll be back after this break.